Welcome back, everybody. Today we're working on the Paper Factory Section C contract, and this one has the largest amount of cargo that we need to bring in, and also the widest variety of cargo. This will be a little longer episode because we're going to finish off the 2 remaining tasks that we have left to do as well. Welcome to the Wisconsin road trip. Let's get started. First thing we're going to do is run over to the warehouse by the gas station. We're going to pick up 2 small pipes and a cargo container. That warehouse is getting depleted. There's not as much cargo left in there anymore. So whatever we can't get out of there, we'll have to craft from the railway factory. Let's run back over and drop these off, and then we'll see where we're going to head from there. Alright, now that we have those turned in, we can get the bore parked off to the side and we'll jump into the Kolob. If you haven't realized it by now, I basically use the Kolob for any of the muddier trips and the bore for the stuff that's not so muddy, and I can get there a little quicker. But for the next few trips, we're going to have to use this truck because we'll be crossing the river and taking some muddy routes. So let's head over to that railway station. We're going to pick up some fuel, another cargo container, and a large pipe. Out of the 3 Paper Factory contracts, this one is definitely the most cargo and takes the longest to complete, but we're still going to get it done in an efficient manner. It's just going to take a little bit more time to do it. So the first thing we'll do is grab a cargo container from the loading bay, and then we'll have to swing around to the backside and craft that remaining material. I did bring the Dan back over here. If you remember previously, we used it as a rescue truck just around the corner. So I brought it back over here and got it hooked up to the generator trailer again. We can craft the 4 fuel that we'll need to haul over there and 2 large pipes. I'm going to mix up the loads by carrying 2 fuel and a large pipe on this trip. I know the general rule of thumb in SnowRunner is to always load the heaviest cargo on the front of your trailer, and I'm not entirely sure what is the heaviest on this load, but I'm not that concerned about it. In this case, I'm just more worried about not having to drive around to the front again after getting loaded. So I'm kind of just throwing it all on there. And to be honest with you, I'm not really sure if it's going to make that big of a difference. Having said that, I have noticed with this 8-slot trailer that if you load the heaviest cargo onto the front, you'll have an easier time pulling it when you're driving through some of the rough spots. But if you're going over any sharp inclines, this trailer does sag in the middle, and having the heavier stuff on the front kind of pushes the legs down into the ground further, so it's more likely to get hung up on stuff. Because of that, I'm not really sure if it's more advantageous to have the heavy stuff on the front or the back. It just depends on what kind of a headache you want to deal with. But we can get this stuff turned in, and we're going to stick with the Kolob for a little while. We have some more trips to make in that same area. So we'll get refueled and run back over to the railway station. This time we're going to pick up a couple of consumables, another large pipe, and the remaining 2 fuel. These 3 contracts can be a bit cumbersome because you're kind of constantly driving back and forth in the same areas, and that is why I cut a lot of it out on the last 2 episodes. But if you have the proper trucks to use, it does take some of the headache away, knowing that you're not going to get stuck when you're crossing that river or going up this steep hill. This is where having some experience of knowing what trucks perform the best in different situations can really help you out to make your life a lot easier. Once again, I'm going to get loaded up in the front loading bay first, so I don't have to drive back around here again afterwards. We'll grab the 2 consumables. Then we can get turned around and we'll head around to the backside. We got the last large pipe and the 2 fuel. Let's head back over there and drop these off. The 2 things that I always have on my mind when I'm pulling these 8-slot trailers around is always be conscious of where the legs are and kind of steer your truck in a sense where you're steering the trailer around to keep the legs from getting hung up on stuff. But then also you want to make sure that you're thinking ahead whenever you get to a spot where you have to turn around. So that way you don't have to do like a 15-point turn just to get back on the road again. And I've also noticed going across this river, if you go past the road and cross where it's a little bit steeper bank, there aren't any rocks out there and the crossing is shorter, so it does seem to help a little bit. Just play around with that and see what works best for you. But we did make it back. We're going to pull in and get these dropped off. From here we need to load a couple of metal beams that we're going to find out in the wild, and then we're also going to pick up those 4 bricks that we left in the sawmill on episode 10. So we'll head south out of the factory. We're going to take this long road that goes all the way up by the railway bridge, and we'll take a shortcut over to the metal framing that's out in the wild. I'll show you where it's at. We're getting really close now to finishing Wisconsin, and my anticipation for a MRR is ramping up quite a bit, and hopefully it is for you too. Wisconsin is a really nice region and it's a lot of fun, but I gotta be honest, I'm craving some more difficulty. At some point, this map just kind of starts to turn into a lot of driving around and not a whole lot of challenge. We haven't had anything really that difficult since we left Polar Peninsula, and I'm looking forward to getting back out into a snow map again. The snow maps are definitely my favorites. Let's run down the hill. We've taken this shortcut quite a few times now, and we'll cut across the river, and we'll make a loop around and come up from the backside. This trailer makes it a little difficult to get loaded because you're kind of on a sharp hill here, but if you can get your front tire at least into the loading box, you should be able to get it from there. And then we'll just back out, and we're going to take the long path all the way up and around by the gateway, and we'll head back down to that sawmill. If you remember, we loaded up 4 bricks with the Paystar, and we dropped them off in the sawmill storage so we could get access to them later on with an 8-slot trailer. This is the moment we were planning for. So we'll just run past the gateway and we're going to take this highway all the way down. We can swing in and get topped off with fuel. Might as well grab some out here at the gas station. And then make a nice big loop around, just to make sure you can get back out of here easily. So we got the 4 bricks and the 2 metal beams. We'll go get these turned in. We still have a fair amount of cargo to find after this is delivered. Let's take the main road back to the paper factory then. Once we get this contract complete, there will be 2 remaining. We'll have to haul 16 cellulose into the other map and deliver them at the train station. That's going to be a pretty big load. We'll use both of our 8-slot trucks to get it done in a fairly efficient manner. And then the final contract is the train departure contract. Basically, we'll just have to bring in a few required materials to get that train back up and running and send it on the way. Previously, we did already load up the 3 sequoia trees that are going to be hauled out. And we also pulled the locomotive over there, so it's ready to go. Just needs a few more materials and some fuel to finish it off. Now that we have those dropped off, we're going to pull the collab over here and park it for now. Then we'll jump into the A&K, and we can find 2 more bricks that are over by the gas station on this map. They're right along the shoreline. So let's head over by the rolled steel factory, and I'll show you where that's at. You can see the arrow pointing up on the map there, that's where we're headed. We can turn off on this dirt road, and the brick framing is right around the corner. Once we get it loaded, we'll just turn and burn and head straight back. The A&K makes short work of this kind of stuff. Only thing you really got to watch out for is making sure you don't flip it over. But we did make it back, so let's get it parked. And we'll jump into the Taiga. And we still have a couple of tasks that we need to finish up on this map, so let's make a quick detour. Since we're headed over by the farm, we might as well work on the recovering what's lost task. There's an oversized cargo over by the train derailment that we need to load up and haul over there. So basically we'll take the same path as if we were headed to the railway warehouse, but when we get down to the bottom, instead of turning right, we're going to turn left and follow the tracks down a little ways. There's an oversized cargo here that we need to load up. The Russian mini crane doesn't have any problem doing it. If you jackknife your truck like this, you'll have a little bit better reach. The biggest problem with this job is getting back out of here again. There's so many big boulders, the back of the trailer gets hung up on them, or on the tracks when you're trying to turn around. So I'm going to actually just pull ahead here. And then I can back the trailer up off to the left, and we'll get back up on the tracks facing forward. There we go. From here we need to head all the way back to the farm. So we're going to get on the highway that goes by the gas station and take that all the way back past the garage. And then I'm going to show you an alternative path. I guess it's kind of a shortcut, but mostly it's just an adventure. There's really no practical reason why we should take this route, but it's kind of fun sometimes, just to prove to yourself that you can. So let's head that way and I'll show you where it is. Right when you get to this really muddy spot where you cross the river, you can turn right and go downstream, but I ended up tipping my truck a little bit sideways and the cargo fell out, and when I went to reload it, the crane was bugged. It wouldn't let me move the crane. I started to panic, so I just used my winch button to pull it up closer because I couldn't stop the truck from flowing downstream either. And I tried to redeploy it a few times, it still wouldn't let me use it. So then I thought maybe if I jump into the garage and back and redeploy it, and it still wouldn't. I think it's just because I was in the deep water. For some reason it wouldn't let me use the crane. So I just connected to it and drove downstream a little ways to get to some shallower stuff. Like I said, there's no real practical reason to ever take this route, but it is kind of fun. We can get it loaded back up now that the crane is working again. And then the farmstead is just out the bottom of the river, just up ahead. It is really muddy through here, so make sure you have a truck that's capable if you plan on ever going this route. We finally made it out the bottom. This task does require manual unloading as well, so let's pull up next to that loading bay. We'll get it unpacked and we'll put it up there with the crane. Alright, we got that one done. Now let's pull ahead here and park up on dry ground. Then we can jump into the Dan. We're done crafting materials over here at the railway station. So I'm going to use the Dan to pull the generator trailer and that medium logging trailer back over to do the Repaying the Debts task. I'm bringing the generator with because I'm going to sell it off when we're done. These things are kind of expensive too, you know. My plan for this region is to sell off all of the trailers that we have on the map to try to recoup some of the money, as I plan on spending quite a bit of it when we get to Amur on a new fleet. When we did the Kola Peninsula region, at that time I was just using the trucks that I had found in the game, and we used North American trucks for a lot of it. And there was nothing wrong with that. I enjoyed it, and it's actually something that's pretty beneficial to know how to do if you're playing hard mode, because it's a lot more difficult to buy trucks in hard mode. But now that we're further on into the game, we have a little bit more money to work with and we have some extra trucks. I figured it was time to actually play a region that was focused on the Russian trucks, instead of mixing and matching them. I guess what I'm trying to say is, Amur's going to be quite the challenge, and I'm planning to use as many Russian trucks as we possibly can in that region. Let's drop the trailer here for a second while we get unhooked from the generator, and we'll grab onto it and pull it down to the lake house. This is the last task that we need to complete in this region. It's actually quite a bit nicer to pull this trailer over here when it doesn't have a load of logs on it. If you remember back when we did the logging, we used up the medium logs on one of the railway contracts, and we used the big cat to haul the medium logs over here for this task. Alright, let's jump back into the Taiga. We need to load up some metal beams out in the wild, and we're going to grab this red wagon trailer and pull it over to the gas station. I don't want to leave any trailers out on the map that I'm going to have to drive back later on and pick up. We actually will be utilizing this trailer again here in a little bit. So we can just drop it off here and get topped off with fuel. And then there's some metal framing over by the fuel warehouse over here on the east side of the map. Let's run over there and go find it. This path heading through the trees can get really muddy, so it does pay off to actually try to stay on the grass. It can speed it up quite a bit. We'll go past the fuel warehouse, cruise up over the hills here, and then off to the left you're going to see there's kind of a bowl in the hills. You can drive straight up the other side, and there's metal framing up here on the top. They did conveniently place a couple trees right in your path though, and they're not breakable. I'm going to pull ahead here so I can back into that parking lot and get turned around. Then we'll head straight back out the same way we came in. Let's continue further south and we'll go around the corner and make our way over to the rolled steel factory. These metal beams are going to get converted right away because we still have 4 metal rolls we got to haul over there as well. We can get 2 rolls from each beam, so this should take care of the rest of them. Now if we follow the shoreline around, there's kind of a path that goes through here. Parts of it can get a little bit deep and muddy, but for the most part, it's pretty decent. You do have to be careful when you're going over these rocks though, because you can tip over here pretty easily. Then you'll see there's some more metal framing just out the other side. And we can actually cross the lake right there. There's kind of a nice little shallow spot. And then just go straight up the hill and the rolled steel factory is up at the top. It's a pretty decent route. Let's swing in here and craft those rolls. Alright, now that we have the 4 in stock, we'll come back later on and pick them up. We're going to head back down the hill and go get that metal framing that we just drove past when we cross the lake. There's a little wooden bridge down here that we can use, and then going around the corner is that metal framing. I'm going to take the same path across the lake again, and this time I'm going to just follow the edge of the shoreline all the way around the corner, over by that big wooden bridge, and we'll head up to the paper factory. This will take care of the metal beams, and after that we'll grab those metal rolls. Then we just got to find the 4 consumables to finish this off. When you're going across the shoreline here, there are some big rocks and also some stumps in the ground. This is the one spot that makes this path kind of a pain in the butt. The trailer likes to get hung up on the stumps. You might have to winch it sideways to get through here. But once you get past that, the rest of it's pretty easy going. And and then we'll round the bend, and we've been down this path like 100 times now, so we know exactly where we're at, and we're almost there. From here we can head over to the rolled steel factory, we'll grab those 4 metal rolls and get those turned in as well. If you remember last time I was showing you where there's a shortcut that comes down the hill, you can go up that hill pretty easily too. It's right here. And then we'll just go around the corner and grab those rolls. I don't know if you can tell or not, but I'm getting excited to be done with this region. Usually you can see it in my driving style by now. Especially when I pull the tag out, I tend to kind of cruise a lot faster than I do with a lot of the other trucks. But that's it for the Taiga. Now that we have those turned in, we just need 4 consumables. We're going to grab those out of that southeast warehouse, and we're going to use the Paystar 5600 to do that. So we'll jump into it. We left it up here on the top of the hill. It is getting pretty low on fuel, so the first stop we're going to make is the gas station. We can also rendezvous with that red wagon trailer that we left over there, and we'll bring it with us. Probably wouldn't need to use that wagon trailer if you wanted to just overload the 4th one using the mini crane, but due to the fact that I'm not leaving any trailers on the map, I don't want to have to drive back over here and pick it up again later, so I'll just bring it with. It's just going to cut down on the amount of driving around I have to do when we're done with the region to resell all these trailers. We're going to follow this road back around by the fuel warehouse, just like we did with the Taiga, and then I'll show you a path that I usually take to get up into that warehouse without having to follow that mountain road that goes over the nasty river crossing. It seems like I always tip over there, so I try to avoid it when possible. We can take a right that goes back in behind the farmstead here. This is the same route that we just took with the Taiga, only this time we're going to cut off to the left and go across the swamp. If you remember when we came through here with the twin steer, the swamp does get pretty nasty. So I try to cut over to the shoreline and drive on the grass instead. But there are some spots where you can't really avoid driving through the water. Just take your time and use low gear and diff lock. And then we'll take that same path that goes up the hill, and right at the top of it is the warehouse. There's 4 consumables in here, so we'll grab them all. And then let's head over to that brick factory. We can get repaired and refueled real quick before we make the trip down there. Just like before, we're going to drive right up around the horseshoe and then cut through the trees and get over to the main road. That shortcut definitely makes it a lot quicker and easier to get in and out of that warehouse. As you can see, there is some metal framing up here that we're not going to use. There will be a few things out in the wild that we left, but just like on the last region, we'll offer those up to the SnowRunner gods and just leave them there. Now from here we'll go down the ravine and make our way to that wooden bridge in the middle of the map. This route definitely makes it a lot quicker and easier to get back and forth between the paper factory and the brick factory, so I would recommend using it as much as possible. Looks like we blew a tire and half of our suspension coming down the ravine. That tends to happen when you don't really ever go back to the garage with your trucks. Eventually all the tire damage catches up and you start blowing them here and there. But that's why we have the service trailer out in the field. Let's get these turned in and be done with it. Okay, Paper Factory Section C is also now complete, and from here, we're going to work on the Wisconsin truck trip contract, but we're going to save that for next time. So make sure you come back and check it out. That will be the series finale, and I'm looking forward to finishing all this up, packing our bags, and heading to Amur. We'll see you then, and thanks for watching.